Welcome to Cashflow Diary, a podcast where we discuss business, money, real estate, and the sharing economy. As a full-time real estate investor, entrepreneur, and all-around problem solver, I have had the privilege of developing individuals into powerful business owners. And today, the focus turns towards you. Our mission is to help you build your real estate empire by leveraging strategies to grow yourself, your mind, and your wallet. Let's get started.
Most everything is the same with the following exceptions. When it comes to silver, we have a little less concern with counterfeiting because it's not worth it. You take a 400 ounce bar and you bore out the center of it and like literally take out the gold, and you can still weigh it and make it look good on the outside. That's kind of worth it because gold is worth a lot of money. It's not worth the process to do it with silver. So you have more freedom when it comes to form factor. Form factor is where the quote unquote freedom lies per se. And I'm less concerned about it being minted by the government in those situations. So those two things change. So you'll see me go look at silver and there'll be different form factors and different mints that are completely fine and acceptable. Completely fine and acceptable. But you're still going to avoid sales tax, markup. You still want just bullion. You want to avoid all the grading stuff, and you still have the premium, discount, and spot price to pay attention to. Okay? So those things still matter, but form factor, not as concerned, because again, the amount of cost to actually try to counterfeit the silver in that quantity exceeds the value of silver in that quantity. So it's way, way, way less of a concern. Now, from a storage standpoint, silver is a bear because it's just very bulky, right? Because you have these coins and there's a lot of them. And gold is not as bulky. So just understand that, if you happen to go with an online broker and then you got this really big, heavy thing and you're just like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Yeah, you bought a lot of silver. And that's how it goes. That is a part of it. All right. But again, with silver, there's still mints by each government. So again, you've got your United States, your Canadas, and all this other stuff. So, but again, we're still avoiding we're paying as little premium and as little discount because we want to pay as close to spot as humanly possible. And we're still just buying bullion. Here's the little known fact. The American, well, all of them actually, but the United States Silver Eagles and the Gold Eagles, they can be spent like currency because they are stamped as such. Okay, but don't do this. Okay.
Go to the store and just give away $2,000 worth of gold for $50.
Don't do this. Okay, it is good. It's $50 US, but it's also 1 ounce of gold. So don't do that. Okay, don't do that. But yeah. So yeah. But when it comes down to it, this is an example, or these are examples of what you're looking for. You want as much bullion as you possibly can get. So therefore, that's why you're avoiding the numismatic. That's why you're avoiding this sales tax. That's why you're avoiding the form factor premium. And then that's why you're interviewing the dealers and asking them all the same two questions to find out how much is the premium that they're charging you today, because it does change. And if necessary, negotiate. But understand your negotiating power is relative to how much are you buying. Okay. And then with silver, you've got a lot more choices because counterfeiting is less of an issue. So you can have a little bit more fun with maybe you want to buy some from many different places. Oh, I was looking for the minor. There's this other, but there's another one that's stamped with a prospector on it technically, and I just like those. So, but that's for silver stuff.
Oh, a couple things. So first, it sounds like to get even like an extra more bang for my buck, so to speak, if I were to find a foreign exchange rate that was favorable in comparison to the dollar and get that government minted coin, would that also be helpful as well?
Maybe, but it's still floating, and because you've got a situation whereas because it's going to change. I mean, for the most part, I have not bothered to try to do it. Like, I hear where you're going though, but in order to do that, you'd have to be able to place the transaction and lock in pricing so quickly. But I mean, I
got you.
You could. It just seems that. And how much would you actually be saving at that moment? Because if you're buying a big enough quantity, it could be worth it, I guess.
Okay. And then my second question is about like storage. So, okay, I go and I get all this gold, all this silver, whatever, and now I'm leaving the mailbox or wherever it comes with all this gold coin, all this silver. Like, what do I do with it?
Right.
That's why the coin shops are next to gun shops.
Right. Exactly.
There is a reason. But storage is, yes, storage is a challenge, and silver is bulky. Some people, they will, and I'm not making this up, but they will bury it in their backyard. Some will get a safe. Some will literally hide it under the mattress. Some will deposit it in a foreign country so that if they need to leave the country that is their residence, they have money already where they're headed. So there, you do have to figure out how you're going to store it. I will say this: London and Australia, Singapore are very, very good. Yeah, Switzerland is also a place. Just depends on how much and what is the use case. In studying this, believe it or not, individuals like Benjamin Franklin has made notes in his diary to where he kept sizable income in 7 different countries, so that he would always be good no matter where he went. And you do have a storage problem, or at least a new challenge to solve, and which I can tell you from experience. Be careful of your cleaning services inside your house. Because they are supposed to clean everywhere, but when they clean everywhere,
they found them.
Because that already happened once, and that was a very unfortunate day. But it is what it is. So and it's not necessarily insurable. So understand what I'm saying, okay? It's not like you can go, hey, I got $30,000 worth of silver and gold at home. I'd like to get an insurance policy in case someone steals it. Like,
right.
That's not a thing.
Okay.
So, but you do have, the one thing I will say is just please don't put it inside a safety deposit box in a bank, because that's just backwards. Because in a financial crisis and or emergency, the bank is probably closed. It's not going to help you there. Okay.
If they haven't confiscated the contents.
Right. Yeah. So don't do that, please. This does become a different challenge, and everybody chooses how they're comfortable with storing it without trying to divulge where theirs is stored at the same time anytime they're having a conversation.
Storage facilities.
Yeah, you could pay a storage facility as well. That actually reminds me, Anthem. So yeah, and that's why I knew that reminds me. There's one more place I wanted to show you. Is this guy's? This is again One of the many. Anyway, he Anthem. Vault, Anthem Blanchard is his name, his wife's name, Cynthia, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, this is pretty much what we're talking about, is a way to do exactly that, to buy and store what is typically called allocated bullion. So you can buy it with him and he will then also store it with him. And the business is all around the fact of, I am keeping this exact 1-to-1 ratio. If you said, hey, I'm buying 400 ounces, he will have 400 ounces and your 400 ounces is your 400 ounces and they will store your 400 ounces. And this is where you get, and this is how we, by the way, this is how things used to be. And this is how we actually ended up with currency, is because people would do this and then they would hand you a slip of paper that is a receipt that it was a claim on the gold you had deposited.
$80 bill.
And then it got more, they were like, well, it's just efficient to exchange these receipts as opposed to carrying around the metal. That's how we ended up here, okay? Because we were trying to be more efficient. I could trust my neighbor so much so that I could leave home to go do something productive and come back, and they didn't try to take my property. Because we had an understanding that, hey, you do sheep, I do fish. And if I do fish and do that, we can exchange fish or sheep at whatever ratio we agree. But in order for either of us to do that, we must trust that when we leave, you're not going to try to take our property. That system evolves and continued to evolve because we got more and more people, more specialization. And now it's like, okay, well, I have sheep, but what I really need, I just need 3 eggs. How does this work? We did not have the medium of exchange required, and that is how currency and the economic systems begin to evolve. It's an attempt at assigning a value as denominated by this thing, and so that we can make an exchange and know that it's fair, right? Because if I have sheep and suddenly, for whatever reason, I say, you know what? I'll give you 1 sheep, but you've got to give me 12 chickens. But then I turn around and say to my friend, you know, I'll give you 1 sheep, but you got to give me a whole house. Okay, somebody got a raw deal, but who? And how do we resolve that situation? And how do you prevent that from happening? Because how do you keep up with the exchange rate of sheep to houses or sheep to chicken and all this other stuff? And then all of that eventually, a society will eventually decide on, and this will happen. You can see so many studies on this. So fascinating. Behavioral finance. I could spend all day just reading about this. Anyway, they'll spend, you could put a random group of individuals together and something will develop as currency. Kind of like in prisons with cigarettes. Something will develop as a currency or as a medium of exchange between a group of individuals. Because we literally need it in order to keep the peace. The challenge where we run into is who's in control of the value of the currency. And what we have not learned yet, for whatever reason, is that it shouldn't be a human. Let it be a natural resource, aka gold. Because here's a little known fact. Well, you actually know, you've been reading the book. You remember when it said, when we were on the gold standard, there was no inflation. It was fine. Everybody was fine. You don't need inflation.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cashflow Diary podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave a rating and a review. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, head over to CashFlowDiary.com to sign up for our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. Thank you again. Until next time.